Hey, how's it going, everybody? Jeremy Donson here with thedrumprofessor.com. Today we're going to be going over Jukebox Hero by Foreigner. We're going to start at about 53-ish seconds into the song. And as always, if you guys need any additional help, please do feel free to go to my website, thedrumprofessor.com, and just schedule in your free session with me. And I'd be more than happy to help you out with anything that you guys may need. Also, if you like this video, please do like, share, and subscribe. I definitely appreciate all my viewers, subscribers, and weekly students as well. So here we go, 53 seconds.
You for sure that one guitar for good as hands did to blow to understand just one guitar somewhere down low on a one-way ticket on a one-way to go. So he's gonna rock it.
So we're going to start with, we're just going to do 4 basses to show you how it lines up with the bass part. The bass is just a driving bass. It doesn't change, it stays the same on this section, and then it changes later once we get into some of the more challenging parts. Okay, so you're going to start with this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're going to do mid, high, floor, floor. Now, once you do 4 basses, just 4 as an example. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you come in with the next part of the beat. So if you do it correctly and you don't rush your bass drum, that's one thing that a lot of my students have trouble with at first, is when they do the bassing, the driving bass, and then they do this, they tend to rush that bass drum. So you want to be really careful. You want to hit the bass on the floor tom of this fill. This is where the bass is going to go. So if you do it correctly, the bass will hit on the final floor. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so once you do the fill, crash with the snare. So now once you crash with the snare, you're going to do bass flam, bass flam. So dig the dumb crash, bass flam, bass flam, bass, bass flam. So bass flam, bass flam, bass, bass flam. Bass flam, bass flam, bass, bass flam. Okay, so putting this together from the fill. Then you just loop it. So after you do the bass bass flam, then you loop it again, going bass crash, and then the part that we just worked on. So once you do the fill and the first measure there, you're going to loop it like this. Bass crash, bass flam, bass flam, bass bass flam, bass crash, bass flam, bass flam, bass bass flam. So doing it a little slower. Repeat. Okay, now when we put this in with the music, you're going to do 8 measures. On the final measure, we do a fill, and let's check out how we put this together. So starting at the fill, 1, 2, ready, go. 2, 3, 4, 5. 7, 8. So 8. 8th measure, we do that. So bass crash, bass flam, bass snare snare. Now once you do the bass crash, bass flam, your bass double times here on this part. So bass crash, bass flam, bass snare, snare, bass snare, snare is your first part, bass snare, snare. On the second snare, you also kick the bass drum. Bass snare, snare with bass on the second one. Now after that, you do tom tom and the bass is on the second tom. So it's on the second snare and the second high tom. Now after the high tom, this time it would be on the first snare and then with the crash cymbal. So just to go over where the bass goes, second snare, second high tom, first snare, crash. All right, so once you finish the fill, we go into the next section of the song here. But before we do that, I want to go over it without bass. If the bass is throwing you off a bit, then it's going to go bass, crash, bass, flam, bass, snare, snare, tom, tom, snare, snare, crash. Add the bass in real quick. And there you have the fill. Okay, so next section is going to go like this. 2. Now, up to the fill, you can see that there's basses that change a little bit more on this one than they did on the bass flam part. So once you do the fill there, 1, 2, 3, bass, bass, snare. So you do bass, snare 3 times. 1, 2, 3, bass, bass, snare. That's your first measure. Bass, snare, bass, snare, bass, snare, bass, bass, snare. So after the third snare, you do the prep stroke, preparing to kick the bass drum. So bass up on that snare drum on the last one. Bass up, bass up. Okay. So bass, up, bass, bass, snare. So 1, 2, 3, up, bass, bass, snare. Now, starting from the fill again, putting that together. 1, 2, 3, bass, bass, snare. 1, bass, 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 bass. After that second bass bass there, or the third rather, the third time you do bass bass, then you do a crash. Let's back up real quick and go over the next section of this beat though. So once you do the 1, 2, 3 bass bass snare, then you repeat the bass bass. So you go bass, snare, bass, bass, snare, bass, snare, bass, bass, snare. Okay? Now the only difference is on the last bass bass snare, you crash with that snare drum, and you're going to do it 2 times in a row on the crash with snare. So say we just did the bass snare, bass snare, bass snare, bass bass snare. Next part. So we go back to the bass snare 3 times and then bass bass with the crash in between it. So I think it'll make more sense when we put it all together slowly, and then you can see how it's pieced together. So we're going to go after the fill. 1, 2, 3, bass bass snare, bass 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 snare, bass 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 crash, bass crash, bass snare, bass 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 snare, bass. And then the fill comes. So all right, so on the fill, once we finish what we just went over, you do this. Now let's do it without the bass drum at first. So you're going to go bass, snare, bass, and then start your fill. dig-a-dut-dut on the snare. Right, left, right, left. So it's called a herita. Dig-a-dut-dut. Now once you do the herita, you do 2 more snares. Once you do the 2 snares, then you do 2 on each tom, 2 on the high, 2 on the mid, 2 on the floor, and then crash with the bass drum. So if you think of it like this, you do the herita, and then 2 on each. That's one of the most basic fills. It's just a matter of placement, knowing when to put it, start it, end it, and after the herita timing. All right, so let's put this together. Here we go. We're going to start right there. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. There we have it. Now to add the bass drum, the bass is going to hit on the 3rd snare stroke. So bass, 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 snare, bass, bass, snare, bass, dig-a-dut-dut on the dut, dig-a-dut. Okay? Now after that first one, the next bass is going to go on the first of the 2 snares after. So dig a bass and bass in, dig a bass and bass in. Now the rest of it's fairly easy because there's not really a lot of independence there. The bass hits at the beginning of each drum. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, crash. So that's kind of nice that the bass isn't in some weird position or something. It's on the beginning front stroke of each drum there. So with the exception of the beginning of the snare part. So putting it together slowly, bass, snare, bass, dig-a-dut-dut, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, crash. All right, and there we have it. So guys, I hope this really helped you out a lot. It's a really fun song to play, I think. Foreigner has some really awesome stuff that I really have a lot of fun playing and teaching. So if you have any questions about this, any further help that you need, please do feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to help. And as always, guys, have fun, stay awesome, and rock on. Later, guys.